The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. We've even condensed the seasons down to 8 episodes, and they still seem to go on forever and ever and ever.
They do, in a good way, though. In a good way. This has been a great season of Q&A, and I'm sort of really glad that we came up with this idea because everybody's having a ball.
Yeah, loving it. And the final episode of the season is next. Season 7, Episode 8, S&T and Q&A with S&T next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Feeling a bit lost? Not sure what's holding you back? A transformational tarot session with Eclectic Path Wellness can provide the guidance you need, combining tarot and coaching to help you understand and navigate the changes you may face. Heal, empower, and clarify your path. Connect with us on Facebook at Eclectic Path Wellness.
Broadcasting from 2 very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Here we are at the end of season 7. Finally, 8 episodes in. It feels like it's been 28 episodes, but here we are.
It's because it's been I was thinking about this because it's been so many questions. Like, so many questions. And if it's really helped one person, just one person, like, I know it's helped more because we've gotten some great feedback. But if our thoughts and ideas have really helped one person, it's been worth it to do this entire season.
And we actually had a bonus episode in there where we talked about suicide prevention and stuff like that as well. And I actually know that did help. And again, just from the response and the additional questions and the new listeners, I'm very excited about what we did this season and really looking forward to the next season of doing some throwback stuff where we have a few more interviews and bring on some of our favorite people who have not been on before too. So
yeah. And Dave and I were having this discussion the other day about
Dave, right? Always having to listen to you.
I know,
talk
right? About our podcast. And we are not, the largest podcast out there in the world. We're not number one of anything.
Right.
But this has become so important to not only you and I think, but a number of people who we have helped to not feel alone.
Yeah.
We have helped to understand maybe some of the things that they've either gone through or are going through. And like, I don't need to be the number one of anything. I just need to know that I'm doing something to help somebody else
I agree.
get through. Would I like to be the number one of something? Sure, why not? We're the number one goofy people. I don't know.
Here's the thing with it, like people in life, and this is true of a lot of empaths in general. Like in life, you do want to help and you do want to be kind, but the world doesn't necessarily always make it easy to do that. And I know in the last podcast I mentioned that we have a new listener, and when we had. Her name's Melissa, by the way. We had just a huge conversation earlier this week, and we were talking about a lot of stuff, and we were talking about kindness in the world and how difficult it is. And I truly believe this. Like, I think that generations since certain children's shows have gone off the air or have changed their formula, I think lack a love for themselves.
Right.
And a kindness to other people. Mm-hmm. I know that I can be dark at times. I understand that. My true inspiration is to be very kind and helping to a lot of people. It's not always easy, but when I present myself to people in person, as infrequently as that happens these days, I really do try to be helpful and kind and make sure they're at ease. And I really think, like, since shows like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood went off the air and the formula for things like Sesame Street changed. I think there's less ability to love ourselves for who we are and less ability to allow others to be themselves.
Yeah.
And I really, those shows really changed back in the 90s. And I think since then, we've seen a huge change in the way we treat one another in this world.
I agree. And I think that we also don't allow ourselves to accept kindness as much as maybe we should. We're all in this mode of like self-preservation. And of course we should be. Of course we should be thinking of ourselves, and we should be who we are and true to who we are. But if someone is being kind to you, let them in a little bit, just a little bit, So important to have boundaries. It really is. It's so important to have boundaries. And I have boundaries, and it doesn't mean that I'm being unkind to people. It means that I am taking care of myself. But it's also important to know that by letting someone be kind to you, by letting someone get just that little inch closer to you, you're doing something for them as well. You're showing them that kindness does matter, that kindness does make a difference. And I think that's something that's lacking in today's world too, is people aren't allowing people to be kind to them. And one thing that I will say about this podcast is that we've been doing this now for, I don't even know, Todd, 2 years? I think 2 years we've been doing this podcast, and it's really brought us closer. It's made us understand each other better. It's made us really evolve working together. Even Dave said one day, he says, you guys would do great with a morning show. Like, we just have that back and forth kind of chemistry.
Oh God, though, can you imagine like 5 days a week?
Oh my God, I don't know.
In the fucking morning with you and me?
I know,
Come on.
I know. I'd be like, is there any way we could like pre-record this for tomorrow morning?
We'd have to, because here's a couple of things. Like in the morning, I don't want to talk to anybody. So when I did do mornings with somebody as a partner, and I've done that many times, they just knew until the first mic was cracked and we went on for the first break. I don't want to fucking talk. And I mean, we could talk about what we're going to do on the show. That's fine.
Right.
But I don't want to hear about your night. I don't want to hear about, your sleep.
That's one of the things I enjoyed about doing mornings by myself was that I didn't have to talk to anybody. When I got to the mic and it was time for my first break, I was on. But other than that, I didn't talk to anybody. No one. That was the end of that. So I'm really proud of us, and I'm proud of what we've done together. And it's just been a really cool journey. So the end of season 7, getting ready to move on to season 8. But we do have a couple more questions.
Let's get to them.
All right. So both questions come from one of our friends. And let me mention, too, that we do feel very fortunate because all of our listeners, whether you listen just on the platforms or you are in our group, Stay Weirdos, or you follow our page, all of our listeners we consider friends. So our friend Chris, who has actually messaged back and forth with me a few times, Chris actually lives out near Rochester, New York, which is just a couple hours west of me. And I'm going to try and see, she asked if we could possibly meet up sometime. So I'm going to try and see if at some point we can do that, because I would love to meet Chris. Chris is very insightful and asks some great questions. So here we go. Number 1, why do you guys think some spirits are surprised you can see them? Could it be that some spirits are more evolved or open as us humans on this side? I had an encounter in my home late at night, just sitting on my couch. It was after midnight hour, and a spirit face to my chest was watching me. It was just observing, but had a skull-like face with rags as clothes. The clothes were blowing in the breeze, but there was none. As soon as it noticed that I could see it, we stared at each other. Mind you, the spirit had no eyes. I wasn't scared and just watched it. It must have had enough and floated casually through my living room wall, kind of fading slowly. I was by myself and consumed no alcohol or drugs, which is important to say.
Right.
And she says, you can definitely share it in the show. So I thought that was a great question because it's interesting. I had an experience. We investigated a library, and it was the first time the library had ever been investigated. And there wasn't a specific spirit or energy that I felt was afraid of us or surprised by us. But what was interesting to me was that it was almost like we were chasing the energies around all night. Like they didn't know, I guess they didn't know what we were doing there or why we were there because no one had ever been in there trying to communicate with them before, maybe is the idea. And so we literally would chase it around. We were down in the basement area and there had been a building caretaker who literally would stay down in the basement. Like he had a little room down there and stay there to take care of the place. And he passed away. And we were down in the room. And to my left, I came out of the room. I don't know why I came out of the room. Everybody else was in there. I came out. And to my left, I could hear keys jangling. And I said to everybody, guys, do you hear that? And they're like, no. And it happened a second time. And he, come to find out, had keys, a huge amount of keys, you know, the maintenance people or the caretakers, this big thing of keys on a key ring that would attach to his belt. And that's exactly what it sounded like. But when I tried to follow it, I was not coming into any kind of energy, residual or intelligent. It was almost like they would come close and then back off. Like they were surprised that somebody was actually there and that we were trying to communicate with them.
Well, flip that around just briefly. Think about it this way. They're doing their thing all the time, right? And all of a sudden, boom, there you are.
Right.
And think about it from our perspective as living individuals. We're doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, we have an experience. Something moves. There's a bang. We hear a voice, right?
Yep.
Same thing. I mean, we're maybe taken a little bit aback by it, and some of us might flee and get away from that situation or be afraid of it.
Sure.
You know, possibly, again, what we have to say in these question and answer series are just our thought processes. But you may have, scared the shit out of him because he, again, like you said, nobody's ever really gone to investigate. Nobody's ever paid attention.
Right.
Right.
And maybe they're just living their life.
Yes.
The way they did. So here comes these interlopers. I've been wanting to use that word for so long. We finally were able to use it. Interlopers into their life. And what the hell are they doing here? You know, what are these people doing here? This is my life. This is the way I walk back and forth to get upstairs or to do this or to do that. Why are these people here? And the parallel existences and worlds that maybe that man is living his life somewhere and we're living our lives, and somehow, maybe not in this case, but somehow the veil has thinned to the point where we can see them. But the great movie, The Others, that was a fantastic movie. There's so many possibilities in these things. I don't know that they're necessarily surprised by us, but I think that there may be some sort of apprehension. I mean, they see people come and go every day, but yet somebody's finally trying to talk to them. Maybe it's not surprised as much as just an apprehension and not understanding exactly what's going on and why it's happening. So
you touched on a lot of the stuff that I was going to touch on too, especially with the veil and like a timeline situation. We just don't understand all that. I do think though, I want you to think about people who may be homeless on the street in our current life. You know, hundreds of people may pass by them every day and nobody gives them any attention.
Right.
And you see stories about how one kind person reaches out, maybe takes them for a meal, and all of a sudden there's this big change in their life. Yeah. And I kind of wonder if it's a little bit like that too. Like I'm doing my thing. Nobody's paying me any attention. and then all of a sudden somebody does. And so I don't know. I do think that it's two worlds somehow coming together, whether it's another timeline, whether it's just an energy world that is connecting or whatever. And I think that probably in a lot of cases, there is surprise on both sides. And I think that sometimes, again, like the situation I mentioned with the homeless person, I think just the thought that somebody might pay what they just do every day some attention might be a little surprising to them. Like, what's going on here?
And also another perspective, another way to think about it is that a lot of times, and we've seen this on a lot of shows, but I've also experienced it myself. A lot of times things that are taken to be scary.
Yes.
Or menacing.
Oh my
or
gosh.
negative.
Something banged, right? The door closed.
Right. Are not meant to be that way. They're not meant to be. They're different. I think different spirits, different energies can do different things. I think that some are very strong and some are not as strong. And so sometimes all they can do is slam a door. All they can do is turn a light on and off. All they can do is maybe move something. We did an investigation once where this entity, this energy literally slid a stool across the floor. We got it on audio. Like, you could literally hear the stool sliding across the floor. I mean, that takes a bit of energy. These are not, but it wasn't menacing, and it wasn't dark, and it wasn't demonic, and it wasn't negative. It was what they could do to get our attention. And so I think another perspective on that is along the lines of trying to help and trying to understand and trying to tell a story. I think that when you do see some of these things, it's not something to panic about. It's because they're trying to get our attention, and that's what they can do. That's the way that they can get our acknowledgement is by doing something. Whether it's an audible voice, I've heard many audible sounds and voices, whatever it happens to be, is what they're trying to do to get our attention. Now, in Chris's case, I have no idea what was going on with her experience. And
it's kind of like The Exorcist. Do you keep any drugs in the house? No,
I know, right? You'd have to actually literally sit down with Chris and talk to her about the situation. Has she ever had that before? But I think generally speaking, though, a lot of times what we take to mean one thing is usually something different. And I think just that acknowledgement can kind of change things a little bit too.
Yeah. And again, I know we mentioned it last week. There was an episode a couple weeks ago on Kindred Spirits where the family was just beside themselves about the energy in the house. And they were just so certain that it was negative and doors were opening and people weren't sleeping. And it turns out to be possibly a former owner of the house who had passed away there, who missed life, missed everything that life had. And, you hear that and you go, oh, dang it. Here all this time we're scared and we're, upset. And here it's just an energy left behind from somebody who lost their life.
Well, I'm watching that episode, Todd, and I'm literally crying.
Well, so was Amy last night, right? Which is amazing because she could be such a bitch. But
I know. And I'm literally sitting there crying because it gives such a personal approach. I think we need to stop treating spirit energies as things.
Stop demonizing it all. Yes.
As objects. They are not objects. They are and were real people, whether it's just a bit of their consciousness, which is still there, and the rest of them has gone on. If you hear whining in the background, that's Spike.
Yep.
And, but we have to stop treating them as objects. They are not objects. They have feelings. They have wants. They have needs. They're there for a reason.
And remember too, and we've talked about this many times, and I'll talk about it till I'm blue in the face. Once you've lost somebody very close to you in your life, and maybe you're into investigating, your investigation takes on a different feel. Because again, you never want the energy of a family member to be subjected to some sort of crazy crap from some dumb shits on TV who, have the #1 ghost show or something like that.
Right.
You want there to be respect and so, again, great question. I think there's so many answers that we could throw at that. But I think when it comes down to it, basically we're talking about two worlds coming together in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they know we're there or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always a case-by-case basis, and it's always more personal than I think a lot of people allow it to be. That's the difference between really, truly investigating and trying to understand and thrill-seeking.
And also, just so you know, as you're listening to this podcast right now, there are things going around you, there are things going on around you that you have no idea are there.
Agreed.
Period. Look to your left, look to your right, look up, look down. There's stuff going on you don't see.
There's energy all around us.
Yes.
There's energy all around us. Everywhere we go.
Do you feel the heat that do you see the heat that is warming you in your house in the winter? No, you feel it. Okay. But, you don't see it. So how do you prove it's there? Well, I can feel it. Well, okay.
Well, and there's ways to determine whether something's intelligent or residual. Sure. You don't need a medium to tell you whether something's residual. I mean, there are other ways of doing it. What my favorite thing to do is to be able to take the scientific world. I know I sound like a broken record, but take the scientific world and the spiritual world, like a medium, an empath, an intuitive, and bring the two of them together, because I think that really locks in what's going on in a situation. Again, looking at the big picture of everything and understanding in a wide world sense what's going on.
When you said it locks in, all I could think of was Ziploc. So I was going to say it locks in freshness.
It kind of does, I guess.
Kind of.
Right?
All right.
All right. So Chris had another one and another great question. Excuse me. What do you think in general a portal is? Could it be there are emotional or time pockets, possibly related to residual hauntings and spirit-connected portals where they go place to place? This may explain why sensitive humans feel stuff. I have one more experience for you guys. In my childhood home, there is a spirit man who stays in the same place, almost like a shadow, but you can see his clothes. I have seen him in my basement since my earliest memories. When I was a kid, he touched me and it felt like cold electricity. I had to pass him to get to the root cellar, and he had an awareness. He is still there. I called him Abraham Lincoln Man because I saw a picture in school as a kid, and that's what he looks like, top hat and all. He is semi-transparent and has a beard. He wears a long coat like 1800s and a top hat. At his waist, he blends into the shadow, no legs. What is good is my mom, who has moved on, told me to run by him and just tell him to leave me alone. I don't go in the basement at my parents' house much. And she has other stories that she'll share with us sometime.
Okay.
So I love that story because that's about as descriptive as you can get. And I think that's an amazing story.
So how did that tie into Portal though? Is she saying that
I think she's saying that maybe is it possible that this man would come and go through the portals? Portals are very interesting. Portals are really interesting. There's a lot of different ways you can look at portals. I've experienced two in my life. I
don't look at portals like I think a lot of people look at portals like a
doorway.
Like a doorway. I really think of portals more like a train station or something like that. Now, so in my mind, for it to be a portal, there has to be more than just one person coming and going from it. Like there needs to be some sort of activity. If it's an energy that comes and goes, we all can come and go.
Right.
We can leave any location we want right this second and go someplace. And I think most energies can do that as well. For whatever reason, the energy she's talking about is certainly tied to that location for a reason. I don't believe that energy is just coming back there to stand there in its top hat and Abraham Lincoln look just to scare somebody. There's some sort of tie there for that individual. And that energy probably has ties other places as well. So for me, a portal really needs to be a place of coming and going, of traveling through. Almost like a train station, a bus station.
I like that. I like that term.
I've known of, and I'm trying to think really quickly. I think a lot of places can be portals for a lot of reasons. But the one place that I remember being a portal in my investigation was a theater in Milwaukee that was right on the river. And if you know that, then you know what theater it was because it's called Riverside Theater. But it actually had water from the river that ran underneath it. And this thing had so much stuff going on. And some of the stories were consistent, as you might expect with any location, but there was always different stuff going on. This person had this story that didn't necessarily happen to that person. To me, that was a place where energies came and went.
Yep.
So when I think of a portal, that's what I'm thinking of. I don't picture it as this black hole into some scary thing beyond. I really just think it's almost like an energy traveling point.
Agreed. I've come across two in my life. Plus, I'll tell you a quick story about one of my close friends, her experience. Some people believe that they can open and close. I don't have experience with that. I don't know. I don't know if they can open and close on command or how you would I don't even know how you would close a port. I just don't. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't know if I want to be at that point yet. I don't know if I can be. But I've come across it twice. One time was outside of a house that we did. And the house itself was maybe a little active, but the land was super active. And you could literally feel like the energies coming and going. It was very odd to me. It was my first experience with one, so I didn't really know what to make of it. Now, the other one that I've come across was very obvious to me. It was at the 1834 Herkimer County Jail. And as soon as I walked in to the cell block, I saw it. And it looked like, and I would assume that it looks different to different intuitives, to different mediums, to different people who can detect them. This one to me looked like almost like somebody was taking a big sheet and hanging it down draping it down. It was large. It was like square. And I knew what it was as soon as I saw it, because in my mind's eye, I could almost feel like the shift between where I was standing and where it was. It was probably about 30 feet in front of me. And it was down in the bottom section that had been dug. It wasn't in the original jail plans. They had dug it, and it was sort of like that intermediary, the holding area for the inmates that were going to be taken outside and led across the street to the courthouse, like indictment type thing. And against the back was the cell bars for the block, and it was there in front of it, and all I could feel was energy shifting, and it was a little bit unsettling, I will admit. What I did deduce from it is that it wasn't tied to the jail, which is interesting. And I didn't know when I saw it about the fact that it wasn't in the original jail plans. I didn't know that it was like a cellar and it had been dug into the ground, which then made me kind of realize that this was not attached to the jail. This was something old. This was something from the land. And I felt like a really strong, like Native American presence down there, which I think the portal actually may be tied to the Native Americans. We know that the Native American culture believed in a lot of stuff like, all of their rituals and all of their things. I do feel there's a possibility that the Native Americans who were on that land may have opened this portal at one time. Did I know how to close it? Not at all. I will say, though, that I could feel the energy shift. And at the end, we did a seance and something negative was trying to come through the portal, and you could literally see it on the equipment. And my general takeaway from the whole thing was that a lot of the activity that goes on in the jail is from energies and spirits that had to do with the jail, but a lot of it has to do with things that come and go through that space. It is like a train station or a bus station. What it's doing is allowing them to move from one area to another. I don't even pretend to know, do they come out in another portal? Do they, you know what I mean? Is that how they travel from place to place? I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to tell you, but I know that there were energies coming and going through that space. So that was an experience that I never thought I'd have, and then I may never have again. But that one was so definitive and so clear to me what was going on that we actually closed the seance down when we felt the negative entity coming through, because we didn't want it to be able to affect anything that we were doing in that space. So portals, to me, from my own experience, are without a doubt more like a bus station or a train station, and they allow that movement in and out of locations. Are there portals everywhere? There could be portals in the water. There could be portals in the air. There could be portals in the ground. There could be portals everywhere. Portals are not just, rabbit hole once again, but just the thought that came into my mind, like the Bermuda Triangle. Who's to say there's not a portal somewhere in the air where some of these ships or these airplanes are going through portal? We just don't know. But I will say that portals to me are real. I've experienced it. I know exactly what it is. And interestingly enough, one of the groups that investigated in there, and this is why I like going to a place cold, a location as cold as I can. One of the groups who investigated there 10 years before found that portal in the same exact spot as what I picked up on. And that was an incredible validation for me, because I'll tell you, I had never dealt with anything like that before in my life. And it was a little bit unsettling. Now that I know how it feels and what to expect, it probably won't be as unsettling in the future, but I just don't really think that I'd like to come across them on a regular basis, because they're a little scary because of their potential.
Yeah, I think one thing that I do want to throw out there, and that is portals do not necessarily mean evil.
No.
And it's not the only place evil can come through. So,
right.
You mentioned the seance. By doing a seance, you're conjuring energy to come to you.
Right.
And
agreed.
That whether there was a portal in that location or not, that negative energy, that evil energy still could have come to you, because basically what you're doing when you're doing a seance is you're almost opening like a portable portal. Like you are opening it up to happen.
Exactly.
You can sit by yourself if you want to with a Ouija board, and you can open up a portal to let something come through.
Right.
Like, so there are different types. When I think portal, I think of like traveling spaces where energy comes and goes. Right. Why it does that, I don't know.
But if you have negative intentions,
yes,
you will get negative results.
Yes, but also I think if you can also have negative results if you are not sure of what you're doing. If you're, my favorite phrase, fuck around and find out.
Exactly. And two things to that. Number one, that is why it is so incredibly important to protect yourself And we've gone over protection many, many times.
And I'm going to add a question to this episode because of what we're talking about now. So go ahead.
Good. And number 2, it was unsettling to me because I had never experienced it before. Do I feel like I want to experience it again? I don't necessarily want to. Do I think I will probably have to experience it again?
You will.
Yes, without a doubt. But it was mostly unsettling to me because of the fact that I had never dealt with it before. The negative energies aren't necessarily as much of a problem because if you're confident and you're protected, you have a better, I guess, wall of defense against them. And if you know what to do when you feel it, we shut down immediately. And so that's why. Now, did the portal close? No. But did we shut down our ability for whatever was coming through to affect us more? We certainly did. So I don't want people to think that necessarily portals are negative. Here's a cute kind of story. I guess cute is relative, but my close friend had a house that was very old. It was about 100 years old. And this was years ago. They were doing some renovations. And her 2 kids were very small at the time. And she would come into work and she'd be like, I didn't sleep last night because all this weird stuff was going on. And we keep hearing voices and somebody pulled the back of my hair and somebody whispered in my ear. And we heard this little girl's voice down the hall and all of this stuff. And none of it, though, was the same voice. None of it was the same kind of activity. It was all different kinds of activity. And my first thought to her was, I wonder if you have somehow opened a portal because it's not the same activity. It's not the same stuff. Now, when they're renovations, and I told her, I said, all you have to do is say to them, I have boundaries. You are not allowed to interact with us. You are not allowed to touch us. You are not allowed to, do this or do that with us. The kids were always safe, but she would hear her daughter on the monitor goo-goo guying and talking to something that wasn't there or she thought wasn't there. But you have to set boundaries. And ironically, once their renovations were done, it pretty much stopped. So, you just never know what's going to happen. You never know how it's going to be. And so it's not something you want to mess with. It's not something I want to mess with. It's something that I now have experience with, but it's not something that is my favorite thing to deal with. It just gives me another level of understanding, I guess, in maybe what's going on in the environment in certain situations.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a new listener. Her name's Melissa, and she said, where can I put my questions? And I said, just shoot them to me and I'll answer them, however. And her question was about us saying being open and then saying, make sure you protect yourself. And she said, oh, fuck no. And she said, what does being open mean? And I said, open energy, open mindset. Mm-hmm. Open energy, open mindset. But we really talked about protection. I said, don't let the word protection or the phrase protect yourself scare you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I gave her some examples. When's the last time you flew in an airplane? Right? Did you wear a seatbelt? Did you have a flotation device? Right? Did you look at the little card in the seat, to know what happens if you go down in the water and everybody's smiling as they walk out of the plane into the raft, right?
Right.
Right. When did you last drive in a car? Did you have a seatbelt on? Did you use your turn signal? Are there airbags in your car? Do you wear gloves when you're out in the winter? Like, do you just go outside naked or do you put clothes on? When's the last time you touched a hot pot on the stove just to do it? Like,
right.
We all do everyday stuff in our life, but we protect ourselves. And protection just really is being aware of the situation.
Yes.
So don't, again, if you're going to drive a car, don't drive 150 miles an hour down the road. That's a one-way street the wrong way, while not wearing a seatbelt and having a car with no airbags, and then plow into a brick wall. Like you need to protect yourself. You need to follow
Right.
so don't be afraid when we say protect yourself, we're just saying be aware, be curious, but be careful. And I thought that was a great question because I think sometimes, again, everybody looks at the paranormal world as, oh my God, it's all evil, it's all dark, because we're presented with that. That's not what it is. That's not what it has to be. And protecting yourself just makes you aware of the boundaries you probably shouldn't cross.
Oh, right. And speaking about, okay, so just a couple of quick thoughts before we wrap up on protection. Not everybody has to carry crystals.
Right.
I carry crystals because they are something that I truly believe in. I have faith in them. I feel better when I have them. I feel their properties when I have them. As a matter of fact, I wish everybody could see, I have large bars of selenite, which charge crystals. And I have crystals, a whole bunch of crystals sitting on my selenite, getting ready for this investigation that's coming up. And they're all sitting there. I make sure Dave has crystals but that's our choice. But I think what's important is that you take whatever you believe in, your faith, and you put faith into it. And, I always say the prayer to St. Michael before I investigate and ask for protection and to be encircled in his white light of protection. I always thank him at the end. I always set my boundaries at the end and say nothing is allowed. No one and nothing is allowed to follow me home or attach to me. It's all about boundaries. Example, Dave and I always investigate together. But if there's a time when we investigate separately, I've already had the discussion with him about setting boundaries, about each place that he goes to. He needs to set his boundaries with whatever energies are in the area. You are not allowed to attach to me. You are not allowed to do this. Some people have this real fear of being touched. And so you are not allowed to touch me. Whatever your boundaries, your personal boundaries are, it's so important to set that intention. Does that mean you have to panic and go crazy? No, because chances are you're not putting yourself in a situation where it's dark energy or it's something that's going to harm you or anything. But you never know when something is going to want to be, I hate the term attached, but is going to want to be. So it's better to do it. Do I think that I'm going to be in a plane crash? No. But do I want to wear my seatbelt and know where my oxygen mask is? Of course. You could drive down the highway and have a semi crash into you. I mean,
everything we do in life has risk.
Right.
And I'm not sitting here, everybody's got to go out there and investigate and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. No.
But don't because this individual, I'm pretty sure, has the old empath skill going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about some of her questions in the Empathecary after we're done with our season here in just a few moments. But I don't want her to be afraid of it. I want her to be understanding of what that means for her, and what it means for her is going to be different than what it means for you or I or other empaths. Mm-hmm. But I also want her to understand it and be able to live with it, and it be a good thing for her instead of a bad thing.
When you are open and you have an open mindset about what's going on,
everything,
you have the power. You are the one with the power to determine whether something is going to go one way or the other. You alone have that power. As an empath, I could look at it as, oh my God, this is horrible that this, it's just happened to me. This contractor guy was putting in a door in our side door a couple weeks ago. And the man just wanted to stand there and tell me his life story. And I'm trying to get my work done. And he's, I could look at that and, oh my God, this is what I get for being an empath. But you know what? I looked at it as, for some reason, he feels he needs to tell me this. So I'm just going to let him tell me. And then I'm going to go get my work done.
And see, I'm the empath that will walk away from. I will make that person feel very welcome in their situation. And then I will turn around and go, oh, whoa, it's me.
But it's, again, you have that power in you to look at anything in a negative
power of Grayskull.
Or remember the Wonder Twins when we used to talk about the Wonder Twins?
Yeah.
And but yeah, so you have that power. Have faith in something, and a lot of times that's the basis of your protection of any kind, is having that faith in something, in yourself, in good, in anything like that will give you that protection.
Here we are at the very end of season 7. We give you our final spiel.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the Empathecary Podcast. It's for empaths, by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mindgarden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
The final spiel for season 7. That's episode 8 in the books. And
we did it.
Yeah, we did it. I don't know how we did it. I didn't, because going into the season, I just wasn't sure. I said to myself, I don't know. It turned out to be okay. And
Pretty okay.
Pretty
It
okay.
was good.
Yeah.
It was a weird, I can't believe that we actually stuck to 2 seasons in a row with the same amount of episodes and the same theme.
Okay.
Because you know how we are. We're like all over the place. Now, we have plans for this or plans for that, and things change. And, so a big thank you to Chris for her questions, though, because I thought those were excellent questions and excellent stories.
And also,
Excellent
Melissa,
stories.
thanks for, I don't know that I necessarily asked if I could use it on the show. But listen, if you ask me a question in real life, it's going in the podcast.
There you go. It's all, nothing's off the table in this world.
We'll have some special stuff for you, including an Empathecary, maybe a Sandy's Cemeteries, and then we'll see you for season 8 of the new improved Sandy and Toddcast.
All right.
It'll be like when Laverne and Shirley moved from Milwaukee to California. Yeah. Do you remember the seasons where they moved to? And then the season where Shirley left the show and they tried to keep it going with Laverne. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I think once they moved to California, that was it, though. But that's one of my favorite physical comedy duos ever.
Yeah, they were good.
Ever.
All right, everybody. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.